My name is Emily. I am 43 years old. I was born and raised in a small town in Oregon, where everyone knows everyone and the most exciting event is the weekend fair. My parents were teachers, and they taught me that the most important things in life are honesty and respect. They weren't rich, but our home was full of love, warmth, and books. I grew up believing that family is sacred, that your loved ones will always support you no matter what. I believed that with all my heart. I never imagined that one day my faith would be shattered by the very person who was supposed to become my family, my mother-in-law. A woman who never accepted me and who did everything to make me feel like a stranger in my own home. I met James when I was 25. He worked as an architect and I was a schoolteacher. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party, and he immediately seemed different to me. Not like the guys who brag about their cars or salaries. He was quiet, thoughtful, with kind eyes. He talked about books, about travel, about his dream of building a home for his future family. I fell in love with him almost instantly. We started dating, and a year later he proposed. It was spring, in a park when the cherry blossoms were in full bloom. I cried with happiness. I thought my life was beginning anew. I thought I would gain a second family. I was wrong. The worst part of my story isn't that my mother-in-law hated me. It's that I didn't notice her hatred for a long time, because I loved her son too much. I wanted to believe we could become friends. I tried, but she didn't want to. Our first meeting happened a month after James proposed. We went to her house for dinner, a big house in the suburbs. She was a widow, living alone, but the house was immaculate. White curtains, crystal in the china cabinet, starched tablecloths. I felt insecure. I wasn't born an aristocrat. I grew up in a simple family. James warned me, "Mom is a little old-fashioned, but she's kind." He was wrong. She was not kind. That evening, she didn't say a single warm word to me. She looked me up and down, as if she were appraising a horse at a fair. She asked what my parents earned, what education I had, and why I wasn't married yet. I answered honestly. She winced. "James, are you sure she's right for you?" "She's too ordinary for you," she said when I went to the kitchen to help with the dishes. I overheard it. James didn't respond. He just said, "Mom, don't start." But she did start. The wedding was 6 months later. I wanted a modest garden ceremony, but my mother-in-law insisted on a banquet at an expensive restaurant, saying, "We can't disgrace the family." She paid for everything and chose the menu, the guests, even the color of my wedding dress. I agreed because I wanted to please her. I thought if I gave in once, she would understand that I wasn't her enemy. But she never intended to accept me. The wedding was beautiful, but I felt like a guest at my own celebration. My mother-in-law sat at the head of the table, smiling at the guests and throwing cold glances at me when she thought I couldn't see. I stayed silent. I was happy to be James's wife, and I was ready to endure his mother for the sake of our love. That was probably my biggest mistake. A year later, our daughter was born. We named her Megan. It was the happiest day of my life. When I held her in my arms, I knew I would do anything to protect her. I had no idea that I would have to protect her not from strangers, but from her own grandmother. My mother-in-law came to the maternity ward with flowers and a smile, but when she took Megan in her arms, I saw not love in her eyes, but possessiveness. She said, "She looks like my son. Thank God. Not like you." That was the first sentence I remembered. I smiled. I stayed silent. I decided she just didn't know how to express her feelings. But she did know. She knew how to hurt, and she did it so skillfully that no one around noticed. When Megan turned one, my mother-in-law started giving me advice. How to feed her, how to put her to sleep, what toys to buy. I listened, but I didn't agree. She got angry. She told my husband that I was ungrateful, and that she was trying to help, but I was ignoring her experience. Over time, her words grew sharper. She said I was a bad mother because I let Megan draw on the walls. She said I spoiled the child because I didn't force her to eat broccoli. She said I didn't respect my husband's family because I rarely brought my daughter to visit her. In truth, I was simply avoiding meetings because every meeting ended with me crying in the car on the way home. I tried to talk to James. I said, "Your mother humiliates me. She shouldn't talk like that in front of Megan." He would shrug and reply, "She's just an old-fashioned woman who's used to having her say. Don't pay attention." I tried not to pay attention, but I'm human, not a robot. The pain from every word she said lodged somewhere in my chest and turned to cold. I felt a wall growing between me and my husband, not because he didn't love me, but because he didn't notice my pain. He was blind to his mother. He saw only a caring old lady, not the woman who was trying day by day to destroy my family. The worst thing happened when Megan was 7. We went to my mother-in-law's birthday party. I tried to be polite, helped in the kitchen, smiled at the guests. In the evening, while I was washing dishes, I overheard my mother-in-law talking to Megan in the living room. She leaned down and said, "Your mother never loved your father. She only married him for his money. She'll leave him soon, and he'll be all alone. But don't worry, I'll always be with you." Megan didn't understand the meaning, but I heard every word. My heart stopped, couldn't breathe. I came out of the kitchen, took Megan by the hand and said, "We're leaving." I didn't scream, I just walked out. On the way home, I cried. Megan asked, "Mom, why are you crying? Did Grandma say you don't love Dad? Is that true?" I stopped the car, hugged my daughter and said, "Grandma was wrong. I love your dad more than anything in the world. Grandma just doesn't know how to tell the truth. But we won't listen to her. Okay?" Megan nodded, but I could see she was confused. I realized I couldn't take it anymore. My mother-in-law had crossed the line. She had tried to poison my daughter with lies, and that was unforgivable. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen drinking tea and thinking. I thought about how much I had forgiven, how much I had endured, how much I had turned a blind eye to. But I knew there were things you couldn't forgive. She had stolen my peace, my trust, my relationship with my husband. And now she was trying to steal my daughter, not physically but spiritually. She wanted Megan to see me as an enemy. She wanted me to be alone. She wanted me to suffer. And I realized that I could protect myself and my daughter in only one way, to remove my mother-in-law from our lives completely. No exceptions. No explanations. No hope of reconciliation. Because there are people who never change, who are incapable of love, only of control. My mother-in-law was one of them. The next morning I talked to James. I told him everything. I repeated the words my mother-in-law had said to Megan. I said I would no longer allow her to see her granddaughter. I said this wasn't a joke, a grudge, or a whim. It was my protection. James didn't believe me at first. She couldn't have said that. She loves Megan. I looked at him and said, "You know what she's like. You see how she humiliates me." But I turned a blind eye. Now I can't. If you want us to stay together, you have to choose either me and Megan or your mother. But I will no longer let her destroy our family. He was in shock. He hadn't expected me to give an ultimatum. But I did. I had to. He said he would think about it. He thought for a week. He talked to his mother, and I heard their shouting over the phone. She screamed that I was crazy, that I was destroying the family, that I was depriving her of her rights to her granddaughter. He tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't settle. In the end, he came to me and said, "I chose you and Megan, but I'm asking you, at least let her call sometimes." I said, "No. No calls, no video calls. Nothing. She needs to understand that her words have consequences. If she apologizes, maybe in a year we'll think about it." He didn't argue. He knew I was right, but I could see how hard it was for him. And it was painful to see the hurt in my loved one's eyes. But I knew that if I gave in, my mother-in-law would start destroying our lives again. Couldn't allow that. Over the next 5 years, my mother-in-law didn't see Megan. She called, but I unplugged the phone. She came to the house, but I didn't open the door. She wrote letters, but I didn't read them. I simply removed her from our lives, like a tumor you have to cut out so the body can survive. Megan grew up. Sometimes she asked about her grandmother. I answered honestly, "Grandma hurt our family, and we decided it's better if we don't communicate. It's not forever, but for now it's necessary." Megan nodded. She was fine with that. She was happy. She grew up in an atmosphere of love and respect. She had friends, hobbies, dreams. She didn't suffer without her grandmother, because her grandmother was a stranger to her. Someone who once said the wrong words. I don't know if this was the right thing to do, but I know I protected my daughter and my family. As for my mother-in-law, I wasn't angry. I didn't wish her ill. I just stopped saving her. I stopped being her victim. And karma, which always works quietly, did its work all by itself. 7 years passed. 7 years of silence. 7 years during which I didn't see my mother-in-law or hear her voice. Sometimes I thought about her. Not with hatred, not with pain, but with a faint sadness. Like a person who could have been part of our lives but chose to be an enemy. I wasn't angry at her. I just walked away. I left her in the past, like an old book I once loved but no longer wanted to read. Megan grew up. She was 14 now, a wonderful girl. Smart, kind, confident. She didn't ask about her grandmother. She didn't remember her. To her, her grandmother was a non-existent figure that adults sometimes mentioned, but that didn't matter. And that was the greatest punishment for my mother-in-law. She lost her granddaughter not because of my malice, but because of her own lies. One ordinary evening, the phone rang. I picked up and heard James's voice. He was worried. "Emily, Mom's in the hospital. She's not well. She's alone. I can't go. I'm on a business trip in another state. Maybe you could visit her." I paused. I stared at the phone and felt a cold wave rise inside me. I could have said yes. I could have gone, shown that I was stronger, that I had forgiven. But I didn't want to. I felt no anger, but I felt emptiness. The emptiness she herself had created. "No, James, I won't go. She's your mother, not mine. She chose to be my enemy. I'm not obligated to care for someone who wanted to destroy my family. I can help you arrange a caregiver, but I won't go myself." James was surprised. He thought I would agree. He said, "Emily, she's old and sick. She's not the same woman she used to be. Maybe she's changed." I answered, "I don't know if she's changed, but I know I don't want to find out."
I'm sorry, James.
I can't. A month later, I learned that my mother-in-law had been discharged from the hospital and was living alone in her big house. She had heart problems and diabetes, and she couldn't take care of herself. She hired a caregiver, but the caregiver quit after 2 weeks, saying my mother-in-law was unbearable. Angry, demanding, and abusive. She yelled at her, accused her of stealing, said she didn't know how to work. So my mother-in-law ended up completely alone. Her sons, James had a brother who lived in California, didn't come. They called, but they didn't visit. They had their own families, their own lives. My mother-in-law, who had once been the center of the universe, became a burden to no one. I didn't feel smug. I just observed, like watching a film that had nothing to do with me. One evening, as I was making dinner, the phone rang. The number was old, my mother-in-law's. I picked up. Her voice was weak, trembling, almost unrecognizable. "Emily, it's me, your mother-in-law. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for help. I'm alone. I'm old. I'm sick. I can't get out of bed. Could you come and bring me some groceries? I'll pay. I'll give you money. I'll give you everything I have. Just don't leave me alone." I listened. I remembered that cold woman who looked at me with contempt. I remembered her words, "You're too ordinary for my son." I remembered her whispering lies to my daughter. I remembered how she wanted me to disappear. Now she was on her knees, begging. I said, "You know what you did? You did everything to make me hate you. You did everything to make my daughter not love me. Now you're asking me for help. I will help you. I'll call social services. I'll find you a caregiver. But I won't come to you, because I don't have the strength to look at you. I can't forgive you, and I don't want to torment you. I just want you to know you did this to yourself. You're alone not because of me. You're alone because of you." I hung up. 3 months later, she died. I found out from James. He was in tears. "Mom passed away. She was alone when she went. The caregiver you found didn't come that day, and she died of a heart attack." I stood there in silence. I felt neither pain nor relief, only a quiet sadness. Sadness that she could have been part of our lives but chose hatred. Sadness that she died alone, though she could have died surrounded by people who loved her. I didn't go to the funeral. I told James, "I can't be there. Please don't make me. I don't want to lie that I loved her. And I don't want to pretend I'm grieving. I mourn her in my own way in silence. But I won't go." James didn't argue. He understood. The funeral was modest. Only a few people came, old friends of my mother-in-law, neighbors, her brother from another city. James was there. I stayed home with Megan. We watched an old movie, and I felt the world grow lighter. She was gone, and with her went the heavy shadow that had hung over me all those years. I didn't celebrate her death. I celebrated my freedom. Freedom from her hatred, from her control, from her poison. Freedom to live without the constant guilt of not being good enough. I often think about what karma is. Many people think it's punishment for evil. But I've come to understand that karma isn't punishment. It's the natural consequence of our actions. My mother-in-law sowed hatred, and she reaped loneliness. She wanted me to suffer, and in the end she suffered herself. I wasn't the instrument of her karma. I just stopped being her victim. And when I left her alone with her own consequences. She died in loneliness, and that was her karma. Not because I wished her harm, but because she herself chose the path that led there. Now, as I write these words, I feel at peace. I don't regret not going to see her. I don't regret not forgiving her. I only regret not leaving sooner, that I endured too long, that I let her destroy my life. If I could turn back time, I would do it immediately. I would say to her, "You have no right to speak like that. You have no right to act like that. I will not tolerate it." And I would leave, not out of revenge, out of love for myself. Because sometimes the only way to survive is to walk away. Walk away without looking back. Walk away even if it seems cruel. Because staying means letting the enemy destroy you. And I didn't want to be destroyed. I wanted to be whole. If you're dealing with toxic relatives who try to destroy your family, remember, you have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to protect yourself and your children. You don't have to forgive. You don't have to endure. You don't have to be the good daughter-in-law or the good daughter. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply walk away. Not fighting, not screaming, not taking revenge. Just walk away and let karma do its work. That was my path. It wasn't easy, but it was honest. I'm happy. My daughter is happy. My husband, though with difficulty, accepted my decision. We're still together. We love each other, but we no longer allow anyone to interfere in our lives. Sometimes I think that my mother-in-law, in her dying moments, understood her mistake. Sometimes I think she understood nothing. I'll never know, but I don't want to know. I just keep living free, whole, real. Subscribe to the channel if you've ever dealt with toxic relatives and didn't know what to do. Share your story in the comments. It would mean a lot to know I'm not alone. Hit like if you believe that sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all, just walking away. And remember, you don't have to tolerate people who hate you. You deserve respect, even if it's respect for yourself. Bye for now.